My life's so interesting, I broke my leg. Can you hear me okay in the back without the mic?
Yep.
For those of you who are curious, I had surgery a week ago to repair a knee that has about 40,000 miles on it from running. I'm an ultra-marathon runner. So I run races in excess of 100 miles at a time. I went into the doctor's office and said, yes, I want to keep running. I have no cartilage left. What can you do? And this month's theme being Restart, I actually have cadaver cartilage now grafted to my own cartilage. And I got to restart. Hopefully you'll allow me to continue to be out there and doing what I do for fun, for a hobby, which is running these long races. I do want to thank Julia and Nicole. Where's Nicole? And Ashley. Ashley here today. Thank you, Ashley, for having me come. We met up we got to know each other in my treehouse. I work from a treehouse. We need a space that draws out ingenuity and creativity. I built a treehouse. It's 25 feet above the sea. Has an ocean view out 12 windows. Has a shower, a sink, a toilet, a king-size bed. I wrote all 6 of my books from my treehouse. I hadn't written a book until I built my treehouse just after 9/11. So once I built that space, it drew out the creativity and the ingenuity that allowed me to write 6 books in 5 different genres and design some of the beautiful homes that we build on the ocean on speculation here in Palm Beach County. But it didn't start that way. Can you see the screen from back there?
Yeah.
A little bit? Okay, so wait, let me go back one. I just want to show what Julia did here. Look at the fireworks. Very nice effect that she made. So, as it says there, things didn't look so good early on. I'm a corn-fed country boy, born in Indiana on a farm. I'm the oldest of 6. I went to 4 high schools in 4 years. So talk about restart. My first high school was run by Jesuit priests. I loved the school. Loved it. But it didn't love me and it asked me to leave. I then went to a public high school, 2,000 kids, made a lot of new friends. Didn't love me, asked me to leave. My parents were getting really concerned. 2 high schools in 2 years is not a good track record. They ended up shipping me to a boarding school in Canyon City, Colorado, where my teachers were Benedictine monks that really wore a hood tied with a rope tying their clothes together when I went to class. The problem with that was it was a reform school. Who was sent to reform school? People just like me, young boys just like me. It was the biggest mistake my parents ever made. I loved it. I actually sold my plane ticket for Thanksgiving because I didn't want to come home. I was of the age where I could drive a car, but as a juvenile delinquent, they don't give you a car to drive out there. They gave me a horse. If I took horsemanship, I could ride not only to class on my horse, but in Colorado, when I was in high school, the drinking age was 18, and I could actually tie up in front of a liquor store so I could pass. It was a great life. They didn't love me, asked me to leave, and I ended up graduating from a 4th high school in Indiana that had 4,000 kids in it. So I left that 4th high school with a 1.8 grade point average. No hope of pursuing a formal education. Had a $50 bill and a one-way plane ticket from Carmel, Indiana to Palm Beach in January. Plane landed, and I smelled that balmy air. Remember, I just left 20 degrees, smelled that balmy air, and I was immediately intoxicated with hope. For those of you who are a little closer to my age, there was a show on TV called Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous. You remember? For those of you who are younger, MTV Cribs. Same kind of thing. And I would watch that program at night as a maintenance worker on a golf course, digging sand traps by hand. I earned $180 a week. Listen, I don't believe in the welfare mentality. I don't believe in the entitlement mentality. The welfare system's fine, the system, but not the mentality. I was really proud to have a job and out there, digging sand traps in the warm sun. I would see people during the day who could afford to play golf all day long. I'd go home and turn on my TV, and I would watch Lifestyles of Rich and Famous, MTV Cribs. How do you get that lifestyle? Well, there's a few chances in life, and this is appropriate, the most appropriate theme this month with Restart, that you can turn around to the chalkboard of life and erase what was. And it was time for me to quit. There was a reason I was kicked out of 4 high schools in 4 years. I spent a lot of time in juvenile detention centers, and it was time to erase that behavior. And it was time to try to emulate the people that I looked up to, either on TV, on Lifestyles of Rich and Famous, or on the golf course that I would see who never seemed to work. They just got to play golf all day. I'm not even into golf. I was moved from the golf course to the tennis courts. I got a 25-cent an hour raise. Can you guys even see that picture of me back there? Yeah, that. You see how cool those pants were even then? They're coming back in style. That's actually my little white neighborhood posse. Pretty lame. Anyway, I was moved from the golf course to the tennis courts. I got a 25-cent an hour raise. And the same people who were playing golf all day used to play tennis in the afternoon. So that Lifestyles of Rich and Famous was perpetrating right before my eyes, basically all day long. I swore off all unhealthy vices and temptations by the time I was 20 years old. Yeah, I am a lot less exciting than I look. I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't do drugs, I don't overeat, I don't oversleep, I don't gamble. As my wife of 28 years will tell you, I am a nerd in sheep's clothing. And I decided to become responsible, to try to emulate the people that were being successful. I couldn't do it through education. I had no money, I had no context, and I certainly didn't have the GPA to become educated. But I watched what the wealthy did here in South Florida. I became a tennis instructor. So just like people who don't choose to go to college and go to a trade school, I went to a trade school to learn how to be a tennis instructor. And I got a diploma. Where's my girl who gave me this? There you go. So she gave me this shiny little diploma. I came out of that trade school that said, I went by Mickey back then, Mickey McKinney, certified teaching profession. And this was my license out of poverty. I didn't have to earn $4 an hour anymore. I could teach tennis. So I started my own business. I didn't go to work at a club. And that was my first day on the job. For those of you who can't see that, and remember the tennis shorts back in the late 80s, or you were into basketball, and the basketball players wear the same shorts that were so short that at the end of the day, I was earning $50 an hour. Why would I want to be an assistant pro? Vice president. Why would I want to be a head pro? President. I want to be the director of tennis. CEO. Who makes the most money? I'm printing my own business cards. Nobody says I got to start at the vice president level. Assistant pro. On day one, with black leatherette cards, gold embossed writing, I inserted my full legal name. I wanted it to sound like money. I wanted it to sound like I was worth $50 an hour. Francis Edward McKinney III. Sounds like royalty, doesn't it? Like that's what I want to go by. I ended up charging $50 an hour, and those little tennis shorts were so full of money that at the end of the day, I can stand on a chair and show you this for those in the back, but the fabric of the pocket hung down lower than the fabric of the pant because it was so full of $50 bills. But there was a limit to how much money I could make out there baking in the hot sun. It was $100,000 a year. I was making $100 grand a year as a 20-year-old. $50 an hour times 8 hours a day is how much? 50 times 8? $400 a day times 5 days a week. Times 50 weeks a year. 100 grand a year. I was doing okay. I didn't have to live that life of poverty anymore. But there was a limit. And you know what? The people I taught tennis to, I taught tennis in very affluent communities in Boca Raton primarily. The Sanctuary, the Sea Ranch Club, the Boca Marina Yacht Club, the Coronado Ocean Club. And these people would drive to their tennis lesson in a Ferrari, and they'd have $1 million house and a $500,000 yacht and a Beyonce look-alike wife. And I wanted that. I'm young, I'm impressionable, I'm materialistic, I'm consumeristic. I want what they have, but how? And the answer I learned from them, I earned my PhD on the tennis court, by the way. I earned my master's in a 2-year span by teaching, like, what's your name? Italia? Idalia. I would teach Idalia how to hit a better forehand or a backhand. She would drive up to her lesson in that car with that house and that yacht and that, Richard Gere look-alike husband right here. Actually, you do look like him. And how did you get there, Idalia? How did you get there? And the answer I heard more often than not was some form of investment in real estate. So you might have been a trial lawyer that won a lot of money in court, and you took your winnings of your first court case and you bought a duplex. Idalia, why would you do that? I don't even remember 1.8 grade point average. I don't even know what a duplex is. And Idalia says, I had 2 units and I'd rent them out. I'd make $300 a month, positive cash flow. Idalia, look at these little tennis shorts. I make that much in a day. Why in the hell would I want to be a real estate person? Frank, that's back when I was your age. Now I have 50,000 rental units paying me $600 a month. Who's really fast in math? How much is that? Add another zero. $30 million a month. So I decided after a very lucrative tennis teaching career that I was going to get into real estate. And there was the first house that we did almost 30 years ago. It was a crack house, 2-bedroom, 1-bath house in a really bad part of town up in Northwood, West Palm, which is a very nice neighborhood now, by the way. A lot of the houses I did early were where Jim was on the commission in Delray Beach. I did a lot of my early ones in Delray Beach, in bad neighborhoods, southwest and northwest section. That house I bought for $36 grand. I renovated it and I sold it for $50. I made a $7,000 profit, but it could have been monopoly money. I was so proud of implementing the concept of buying an undervalued commodity, a beat-up old crack house, adding value to it, making it the nicest little crack house on the block when I was done with it. It wasn't a crack house anymore. But that's when I decided to be a real estate artist. Listen, I can't sculpt, I can't paint yet. I'm working on that in 2019. I can't play an instrument and I can't sing, but I can create three-dimensional art that people live in. And at that crack house, I decided to put $15 a yard carpet in instead of 10, and 3 coats of paint instead of 1, and a brand new roof instead of just patching the old roof. And I decided I would deliver the American dream to people who were renting it. Because up until that time, people were renting an apartment. Why? The American dream wasn't meant to be rented, it was meant to be owned. And I took people out of that situation of rental and delivered the first American dream to them in the form of beautiful little houses. All my houses. You drive around Jim, you drive around the neighborhoods of Delray, white picket fence. That was the epitome of the American dream, and we would sell them for top dollar. I didn't do a house worth more than $100,000 for the first 5 years of my career. Anybody a Malcolm Gladwell fan? Malcolm, double fist Malcolm. How many hours does Malcolm say it takes to become an expert? How many years is 10,000 hours? 5 years, full time. From the late 80s to the early 90s, I didn't do a house worth more than 100 grand. But I got to be an expert at the craft of real estate artistry. I loved it. We made $7,000 on our first job. By the time I was done, we were making $25,000 a house. But there was a limit. So it was time to move, take that gift, take that skill, that expertise, and move it to the ocean front. And in 1992, on Delray's Beach, right next to the Seagate Club, it's still there, we did our first oceanfront house. Oh, my teeth! I bought that house for $750,000. This is all public record. I bought the house for $750,000. What's the difference between that and what I was doing below 100 grand? What's the difference between That house had 2 weeks of uncollected newspapers. It had 2 months of uncut grass. It had broken windows. It looked like a crack house on the ocean. What's the difference? 1-0. 1-0. 750 grand versus 75,000. My wife said, I believe in you. I'm going to back you. We moved out of our lifestyles, the rich and famous house, and moved into an efficiency that was so small you could flip the eggs from the shower. Sold everything. Sold our house, sold our car, sold our clothes at a garage sale, and bought that house. So there was no in between. Anybody familiar with the psychologist, philosopher, William James? William James is my freaking hero, man. This guy, you need to read him. To change one's life, start immediately, do it flamboyantly, no exceptions. There's a reason I'm wearing my favorite jacket. Anybody know who wore this jacket? Evil Knievel. Did he do things flamboyantly? He's my childhood hero. And there we chose to jump from 100 grand to $2 million. Since that point, we've done 44 projects on the direct ocean in Palm Beach County with an average selling price of $14 million. I'm just going to show you a few of them. I'm getting the 5-minute warning from the back, and I want to give you plenty of time for Q&A. That was the most expensive one we ever did. It was a $50 million house, 32,000 square feet in Manalapan. Again, these are all on speculation, so I don't build them for a couple. I wouldn't build them for you. Like the Field of Dreams. I build it. My wife does all the interiors, down to the gold-plated toothbrush in the bathroom, linens in the closet, and towels in the bathroom. Like an artist, right? Like Van Gogh, Renoir, Monet, they're going to paint a painting, and if you like it, you're going to buy it. It's the same thing with me. I create three-dimensional art. If you like it, you're going to buy it, but I'm not going to work for you. I'm going to express myself artistically, and if you like what you see, you can buy it. You live in it. There was, I don't have a lot of time to get in that. That was probably the most creative house we did. That had a water floor. When you walked in, the whole foyer, 400 square foot foyer, you're actually walking on water. Bulletproof glass, like you can see at your drive-up teller. Beneath it, 18 inches of crystal clear water with a hand-painted lotus garden motif underneath. By the way, you go to my website, take tours of all these houses at frank-mckinney.com. Or on Instagram, I put a bunch of pictures up all the time. This is the one I just did, a very modern house in Ocean Ridge. This is my last one. So I'm working on my last project. I'm retiring after this one, after 30 years in the business. This is one we're doing in South Palm Beach on the direct ocean. We'll be done, and my grand unveiling date is scheduled for April Fool's Day. So if you get a ticket to the unveiling, they're very theatrical, they're very fun. They belong on a front stage on Broadway or a backstage in Vegas, but you definitely want to come to our unveilings. It is a spectacle. But this one you can take a tour of right now on my website, almost like a coming attractions movie presentation. We made one for this house, so it's like it's a movie. I just would take a second on this. This is my hobby in life. You want to pursue what I call the 3 I's: the insurmountable, the incomprehensible, and the impossible. I run ultra marathons. This is the race in the Death Valley Desert. It starts at the lowest point in the Western Hemisphere at 282 feet below sea level, and it traverses over 3 mountain ranges in July when the daytime temperatures are 125 degrees. The pavement can be over 200 degrees. According to National Geographic, it's the toughest foot race in the world. Insurmountable, incomprehensible, and impossible. You mean you're running that non-stop 135 miles? Lowest to highest on blacktop pavement. I'm not going to get into how I found out about that race, but I had 2 choices. One was to be completely intimidated by the fear associated with the big change or big challenge. The other was to hire a coach, set my mind to get to that start line, which I did for the first time in 2005. I've ran it 11 times. I've failed 4 times. I've finished 7. It's called the Badwater Ultra Marathon. Insurmountable, incomprehensible, and impossible. When those things lay themselves on your heart, don't shy away. Find a way to say yes more than no. It's something that I think once I ran that race, it opened up portals in my mind that I didn't know existed before. What I'm going to be doing now as I'm retiring from real estate is I've written 6 books in 5 different genres. So that's appropriate for the theme today, isn't it? I've I've written philosophy, I've written real estate, I've written young reader fantasy, I have written spirituality, and my new book, The Other Thief, which is Christian romance. This just came out a month ago. And somebody's going to win their choice of all 6 of those books. And I wrote every single one of those books with my treehouse. So that's what I'm going to continue to do. I have to deliver to the publisher a series of my Christian romance novel. It's not a novel about a couple going to the beach and holding hands and watching the sunset. If you saw Passion of the Christ and you saw Fatal Attraction, put those two things together. I would say 50 Shades of Grey in the Bible, but it doesn't go that far. It's a very evocative novel. Spiritually seductive, I like to say. Main teaching point, I'm going to get the gap here. It's my last teaching point. What is that? It's a strand of DNA. You notice how you can't stay motivated in life? As a species, I believe human beings were not wired to stay motivated. Dietarily, relationally, spiritually, financially, we can't stay motivated. I can't stay motivated, even physically, to run that race sometimes. Motivation, if I did a crappy job this morning, when you get home tonight and you take a shower, if you are motivated, motivation goes down the drain with a soap. It does read a motivational quote on Facebook. How long does that last? Seconds. So don't beat yourself up over the fact that you can't stay motivated. Inspiration. Inspiration lasts a little longer, about as long as the effects of a bad sunburn. So a week later, after reading an inspirational book, it's gone. But what can alter your DNA, and I contend any scientist here altered my DNA, is aspiration. I aspired to a handful of things in my life. I aspired to be a best-selling author even though I had a 1.8 grade point average. I aspired to run a charity in the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, where we built 27 self-sufficient villages in 24 Haitian cities for over 12,000 children that were eating mud patties flavored with bouillon and lemon juice. We brought in 12,000 kids with self-sustaining existence. I aspired to do that. I aspired to run the toughest foot race in the world. I aspired to be a real estate artist. What is that? Well, guess what? You're looking at the definition. So, aspiration. I'm not always motivated to finish a book. And I can't stay inspired sometimes to get up and train for a 100-mile race. But I never lose that aspirational goal or endeavor or undertaking. It's on a shelf. It's always there. Frank, you want to finish the race, you're going to have to train for it. I might not be motivated every day, but I don't beat myself over that fact. I might not be able to stay inspired, but I don't beat myself up over that fact. So very quickly, before we do a couple question and answers, who do you aspire to emulate in life? Aspiration is fun. It is the ultimate restart button. So for me, when I was younger, I aspired to be more like Willy Wonka. You don't even have to be a real character. I aspired to be more like Evel Knievel. I aspired to be, who was a real Knievel, he could have been a fictional character, but he was real. I aspired to be more like Robin Hood. I used to go to the woods in Indiana and play with bows and arrows, and I loved Robin Hood. I loved what he stood for. And you know what? I get to sell to the rich. I don't steal from them. Although at $2,000 a square foot, Jim, some people think we do steal. I get to sell to the rich and give to the poor in Haiti. I get to be a modern-day Robin Hood. So there's 3 examples. 2 of them aren't even real people that I aspire to be like. Most importantly, what legacy do you aspire to leave behind? It could be a beautiful tomato garden. Listen, the houses I build on the ocean will be rubble in 25 years. I won't be remembered for that, but I'll tell you what, the 27 continuing self-sufficient villages in Haiti and the lives that we changed, those children that were eating mud flavored with bouillon and lemon juice now have a chance. That's the legacy I want to leave behind. So every day, when I push my own restart button, I think about that. I think about that legacy. Yes, I enjoy doing what I do for a living. I enjoy writing the books and running and all the other things that I do. But what we do for those less fortunate, I'm not going to preach, although I know a lot about the Bible. There's a passage from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 12, verse 48, that says, "To whom much is entrusted, much is expected." I've been entrusted with a lot. 1.8 grade point average, a terrible upbringing, many times juvenile detention, well, yet I've been successful. And I take that, if you're not into the Bible, don't let it scare you. It happens to be a great life mantra. To whom much is entrusted, much is expected. I take that very, very seriously. Every morning I wake up and hit the restart button. So as you aspire, be sure that you dovetail your professional highest calling. Everybody here has a professional highest calling. It's a gift God gave you to do what you do for a living a little bit better than most. Not better than everybody. Where's Adam here from the company that did the graphics? Is that right, Julia? Jonathan. Jonathan, is that you? Adam. Well, you're competing with Jonathan, I think, right? Adam and Jonathan have been given a gift to do what they do a little bit better than most. Not better than everybody. But Adam, Jonathan, Adam is a little bit better than Jonathan. And Jonathan say, well, I'm a little bit better than Adam. Right? That's your professional highest calling. What you do for a living that you do a little bit better than most. What's your spiritual highest calling? I know we don't have time to get into it, but I didn't know what mine was until my mid-30s, and I was very depressed. We were doing great things on the ocean and making a ton of money, but I had no heart in my soul. Until I realized, Frank, you're a 1.8 grade point average, very linear simpleton. You provide housing to the most wealthy. Shouldn't you be providing it to the world's most desperately poor and homeless? That's what you need to be doing. And since 2002, we've been building these self-sufficient villages in Haiti. It's the ultimate restart. There's my website if you want to. On the website, actually, and make sure if you follow me on Instagram, it's Frank McKinney. I'm more pictorial than anything, so if you want to see pictures of the villages, the books, the houses, I put them up on Instagram. And there's a website if you want to take tours of the houses. We have a few minutes for Q&A.
Yes, we have to do good. We have about 5 minutes.